and welcome to Truth and Transparency. Good afternoon, welcome to the Transparency. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Not sure if this is working, but...
Today is not a day to celebrate. But the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi.
Take care, Miss Vargas. See you soon, Miss Vargas.
Paparazzi, stop!
What is up, TNT? Welcome to Truth and Transparency. It's a very special Friday night. I have a very special guest. We're going to welcome Mr. Kevin Clapp from Massachusetts. Thank you for the moderators for being here, members, subscribers. You guys have been following the Karen Reed case.
Breaking news. Breaking off the top here at 8 o'clock, state troopers linked to the Karen Reed case now facing an internal investigation. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm David Wade. This is just the latest twist in the murder case that's headed for a retrial. WBZ's Lisa Hughes is tracking the latest developments from the Satellite Center tonight. Lisa?
Here's what we know at this hour. There are 3 troopers who are the subject of an internal investigation. During the Reed trial, they were linked to text messages about the defendant. So just to refresh your memory, Trooper Proctor was relieved of duty hours after the mistrial. On the witness stand during the trial, Proctor admitted that he sent inappropriate, even offensive text messages about Reed during the investigation. This new internal investigation is focused on Lieutenant Brian Tully, Lieutenant John Fanning, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan.
And that is what we are here tonight for, is right there in the middle. John Fanning is going to be the subject of everything that we talk about this evening. Again, a special guest here. Kevin Clapp is going to talk about, first of all, who he is, how he is somehow connected to, I don't want to say Karen Reed's case, but to the investigators that had something to do with Karen Reed's case. And one of those people right there, John Fanning, I'm going to let Kevin tell his story here tonight, and then probably for a couple of episodes after this one. There's a lot to say. And so I want it to be Mr. Clapp's story, and that we are just keeping everything in chronological order. Again, we're going to tell you who Kevin is. We're going to tell you who his family is. We're going to tell you everything to know about Kevin and his situation, but how it has to do with what's going on in Massachusetts today is because everything that he has gone through, it may have started in the early 2000s, or I should say mid 1990s with John Fanning, but it has continued to this day. But I wanted you guys to hear straight from Kevin himself and everything that he has endured. He has watched his mother go through, just himself and his story. And I think that everybody is going to be able to truly see when we peel back the layers on who truly John Fanning is. And this has a lot of implications with the Sandra Birchmore case. And when you want to talk about Turtle Boy, there's implications there because of right next to him is Brian Tully. Kevin has had interactions with Brian Tully. And again, I'm going to let him tell his story. But tonight, this man has had relationships, family type relationships with the Fanning family. And the stories that he is about to tell us here tonight, he is a victim. His mom was a victim. He's a victim. And no better way to, I don't want to tell somebody's story. I want to give them a platform to tell it. And that's what we're here to do tonight, is to keep it all in chronological order so that you guys can get all up to speed to then, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense what Karen Read has been through and why things are the way that they are in the Karen Read case, in John O'Keefe's case. And we always say like that's a Karen Read case. It's John O'Keefe's murder though. Okay. So if you truly want to get to the truth, you got to go and talk to the people that have experienced things and that can tell you things that, okay, this is a pattern that keeps repeating. And it does. It keeps repeating. And until people come out and talk about it, like Mr. Kevin Clapp here tonight is going to do, who has unbelievable strength. When I have to say, like, do I vet people that come on? Yes, I've had actually numerous conversations with Kevin leading up until tonight. I went back and checked it just to make sure that I could say, yeah, we've talked over definitely 3 hours worth leading up to tonight. But actually in studio with Kevin is one of my moderators. So this is something that we're not just throwing together. This is something that's been, hey, Kevin and everything that he's been through is 100% legit. Kevin wants to tell his story. He doesn't want anybody else to tell it for him. And I admire that, because that's how I am. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. I don't need you to say it for me. I'm asking for, people to let me say it. And it's kind of like an interview when someone just keeps you on track of like, hey, we want to keep it, moving this way. So this is something that is not going to just take a 2-hour interview to do, but it's something that I want to keep at 2 hours. And then part 2 would be like another 2 hours. So I just want everybody to understand that this is deep rooted. This is somebody, Kevin Clapp was like family to John Fanning. And when you hear his story, I think you guys are going to be like I was, holy shit. Okay. So please give a welcome here. Again, we're going to be talking about the two guys in the middle there, Brian Tully, John Fanning, and they want to talk about that John Fanning was supposedly let go out of this internal investigation or whatever they're going to be calling it. Well, this might get you back into it here, Mr. Fanning, because this man right here, I believe what he has to say. And so much so that I'm advocating for him to be able to file criminal charges. I think that criminal charges should be filed against John Fanning with what this man, Kevin Clapp, is about to tell us here tonight, because this is unbelievable. Again, welcome to Truth and Transparency. How you doing there, Mr. Clapp?
Yeah, you're on.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you? Everybody is live with us. They're watching
Hey,
along.
Lana,
So
thank you very much for having me. It's an
you're
honor
very
and a
welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you.
I would just like to
What'd you say, hon?
I just want to say, as I start everything off, anything that I speak about tonight, any answers I give to any of the people come under my First Amendment right of the Constitution of the United States. And I say, God bless America. We're going to make it great again. And God bless Massachusetts. We will make that great again, too. That's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, and everybody in chat saying thank you so much for being here, and thank you for coming on here and and being, willing to tell your story. And thank you, Kevin, for allowing me and trusting me to, I guess you could say, give you a platform, or being alongside, as I like to say, like, I'm here with you, and if there's anything I can do. But let's get into it with this. I just want people to know, they already know who watches me, but I have a little projection screen and I can go back and forth to it. I know people like to follow along with some, pictures or outlines, but we're going to start with basically, who is Kevin Clapp, without, doxing yourself.
Hey, Lana, I
yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a ton.
What was it?
There's a ton of feedback. There's no other devices on at all. No one else has devices on. Or YouTube.
Oh, you have to shut off. Are you watching it on YouTube? You have to shut that off.
No, well, we have no one's watching YouTube.
Okay, so the only thing that's up is StreamYard?
The only thing that's up is StreamYard, yeah.
Are you sure? What about those other devices next to you?
None, nothing. Everything's off. Hers is off. Yeah, hold on, let me see. Hold on.
You just have to mute the YouTube window.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do now.
Oh, Julie shut hers off.
Julie shut hers off.
Everybody can hear you guys.
Okay, hold on.
So are you saying when I talk, it's a feedback for you guys?
Yeah, and
that's interesting, because nobody else is having that problem.
Can you see him still or no?
Yeah, we're fine. I think everything's fine. So
okay, if you can see him.
Can you give me those two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everything sounds great, hon.
Okay, we can hear. Everything sounds good now. Okay, go ahead. I just don't know.
How come Julie shut it off?
Because there was feedback. But
all right, you guys should be good to go. Heather, everything's fine. Just let it. We're good.
Okay.
All right. So, Kevin Clapp here. So, I'm not going to dox you too bad here, but just so everybody understands, you're about 65 years old.
I'll be 65 in August.
So I just predated you. So there you go. So you're 64. I have it here that in 1981 you started with the State Department of Corrections. You worked there, the State Department of Corrections, 1981 in Mass.
Yes, as a correction officer for a very short time.
Okay. Where did you grow up though? Like before ever even having a job, where'd you grow up?
Well, backing way up, I lived 6 months in Quincy, and then my parents were hard workers of the World War II generation. They built a beautiful home in Braintree, and they raised 4 children. And
Awesome.
That's where I basically grew up.
So you got a couple siblings then?
Yes, I have a sister and 2 brothers. My older brother, I'm very close with. He's 84, a veteran of Vietnam. And he's upset about this as I am. It was our mother.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that. Okay. So then when you get to the age of, all right, you're going to start into the working world in the early 1980s. I have you as short time with the corrections system there, the State Department. Then 1983 to 1985, campus police there at Bridgewater State. Is that right?
Bridgewater State College, and yes.
Okay, so you were there as a campus police officer there at Bridgewater State. Then you did, you did the police academy there in between like 83 and 84?
Yes.
83 and 1984.
And then I took.
Is that about right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we get to about the mid 1990s, and in 1990, you had a bunch of like.
Well, I also worked as a campus police officer for a short time.
Is that
right? At Wellesley College in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And I took a lot of courses with the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council in between that, law enforcement.
And then 1990. Sorry there. Something happened there. I reset it there. Hopefully this helps.
Okay.
Are you there?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay. We got kicked off. I tell you, they fight me every day on making sure. 19 in the mid 1990s, your mom, because you lost your dad at a young age, right?
Yes, I was 24. He was.
Did
I
you
lost my
lose your dad at a
father.
young age?
Yeah, I was 24. I was born late in life. My father was 71. He died with a paintbrush in his hand. Massive heart attack in 1983, October 19th. So it was a shock. Life. I was only on Bridgewater State College. I started on a Sunday. I worked Sunday, Monday. I had off Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we got a phone call from the hospital that my father was found dead at work. So it's tough. Maybe God don't want it.
No, that's not true. It's just
The devil's working. My Xanax certainly isn't working.
Hey there. Sorry about that. This should help. Let's see if this works. Sorry about that. As you were saying, Kevin, you lost your dad at a young age. You were about 24, but he was a little. Can you hear me there, Kevin?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I didn't at first.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes. No, can't hear you now.
Okay. So, yeah, in the mid
No.
1990s, you can't hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, hold on one second.
You keep freezing, Lana.
If she can't hear me, how can she hear you? You can imagine.
No. Well, they
Nothing gets past me.
chat can hear me. Or I don't know.
I turned my Wi-Fi off on my phone.
My cell phone is on. Would that be doing it?
Mm-hmm.
But I just have a flip.
Yeah, yours.
No, you're fine.
It's got Wi-Fi on it though.
Yeah, but you're not connected to it.
No. Thank God. There's probably people saying, "God damn it, the best show of ever." Like, it won't come on. Let's get on TV. Fuck these computers.
Yeah, my son just.
It's too bad because I want to read this. This is a very police report when my mother was beaten up. It's very in depth and how they did nothing. And they even asked her. She said she was beaten, and then they
We're gonna get
some pictures.
Are you
Yeah.
back, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So as I'm moving stuff around, 1994, I kind of just want to keep in the chronological order part of this, just because we're going to be doing, we're going to get all the way through it. So 1994, that's when you met Diane Fanning. Is that correct?
Well, I went to work for the MBTA around 1989 or 90. And the MBTA, to the Massachusetts people and New England people, that's Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority. When I went to work there, I started as a bus operator. I didn't know her. And then I did a lot of different jobs there. Then when I went I went on to the Red Line and Red Line trains. I was a collector / gateman. And that's where I met her. She was called the revenue coordinator at the time. And then she worked her way up to supervisor.
So she was your supervisor?
One of them. We had many.
Okay. And then you weren't married at the time, right?
No.
Okay. And so was John Fanning's mother was at the time Diane. That's her name, right?
Yes.
Was she married? Was she married at the time?
No, she was divorced when I met her. I knew the whole entire family, both sides, as she used to call it, the Saugus
Okay.
side and the South Boston side and the Stoughton, Mass side. I met them all.
Okay. And so then where did she grow up and raise her children?
Uh, she began her life with her husband, believe in the South Boston and the D Street projects. From there, she went over to Stoughton, and she was a hard worker. She was a good woman. She got a job at the T. She was a bus driver and a tough one, and she worked a lot of overtime. And then even at the MBTA, then she became a collector. She got injured on the job. And I can remember Diane, she worked 60, 70 hours a week as a single mother and to strive to bring up two children. And I got to say, I'm proud of her. She did it. She was a good woman. I think they heard it.
Oh, so I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now? So Diane Fanning to you was a great person in terms of she could cook, she was funny, you hung out with her, you have nothing but great things to say.
She was a neurotic and keeping things clean.
Okay.
We traveled a lot. Her downfall was smoking, and she was into some substance abuse, and I didn't tolerate that. And
Was that the
so
same as John's dad? Was John's dad the same way? Like his
yeah, but I through his faults, he realized John's father was a good man. He did time in prison. Who am I to judge him? I got along with him very well. I can sit here today and say I got along with everybody in that family very well. To this day, I don't know what went wrong. I don't have any answers, but I know what John Fanning did to me is something that he's going to enter God's courtroom someday, and he's going to have to answer for it. And I think it's going to be an awful ugly meeting between him and God.
Yeah, we're gonna get into what he's done. I really want to talk about when in 1994 when you were starting to hang out with Diane, little John Fanning, we'll refer to him. He was in like middle school, high school. You got him into playing hockey. You got him his first car. Didn't you get John Fanning his first car?
Yeah, it wasn't 84. I didn't know them in 84. It was, I started the T around 90. I probably met Diane, I got my senior moment. So I'm going to say around 93. John was in high school, Stoughton High School. I used to play hockey. I graduated, I was at Blue Hills Regional in Canton, Mass. So I was always loved hockey. And John did too. I used to attend all his games when his mother couldn't bring them for various reasons of whatever. I always made sure he attended his games with his friends. I brought them there. I brought his younger sister there. I sat in the bleachers. I applauded for him. I took him and his friends out for pizza afterwards. I saw a very dysfunctional family, and I come from one myself. So what I try to do is it was a family that I clung to, and they clung to me for many, many years. And the way that John released that cling was after everybody was dead, meaning his father first, and they were long time divorced, but the mother and father kept very, very close. And I can't sit here and say a bad word about them. And, people say, well, geez, the father was in prison. Yeah, he was. Listen, he served his time. Okay, anyone deserves a second chance. He was very good to me. Once at their rental house, Diane, had always owned my own house until recently. I had to sell it or I would have lost it because of the tragedy that I've been through. But life had to go on. And once, the first time I met John Fanning's father, he was over Diane's rental house in Stoughton, I believe on School Street. He was cooking in the frying pan. I think he was a little under the weather. And he turned around and he said to me, I guess the kids had talked to him about me. The sister, Nicole, she was about 8 then. And John was probably 14 and 15, 14. And they weren't there. He turned around to me in the kitchen. I mean, I didn't know if he was going to shoot me, stab me, what he was going to do. Okay. So he turns around and he says to me, Clapp, I'm a con man. I said, yes, John, I know that. What's, why are you going to kill me? He says, no, I happen to love you. He says, you are so good to my kids. He said, and my kids tell me how good you are to them. He said, so if anyone marries my ex-wife, Diane, I want it to be you, because I can think of nobody better to raise my kids than you. And this is the relationship that I had with them. I can't sit here tonight and say that, I'm not God. Only God can judge people. I'm not judging them for their faults, for their whatever may happen in their life. I take people as I find them. And I had a good relationship. They always, on Thanksgiving and Christmas, Diane was a great cook. She was not as good as my mother, but she was right up there. And, oh yeah, she was right up there, and she had a mouth.
She can't
like
top your
mine.
mom though. She can't top the mom.
Well, my
Can't
mother
top
was from
Phyllis,
Italy.
man.
My mother was from Italy, and my mother did Italian cooking. And listen, they met each other.
Amen.
And
Amen.
Diane was all Irish, and but she could cook those stuffed peppers, the turkey dinners. But I ate. I'm not an alcoholic and I'm not a drug addict. I call myself a food addict. And Diane was very
Love
funny.
it.
Diane never held anything back. This is what I loved about that family. All right, we'd be sitting there and there'd be hors d'oeuvres, and Diane used to make beautiful deviled eggs, and she always sprinkled, I think it's that red stuff called parsley. Paprika. That's it, paprika in the eggs. I love eggs. And she would have a tray in the living room, and I remember the celery with the cream cheese with the paprika. Well, one Thanksgiving, I got through at my mother's, and I went over to Diane's. She always rented a house. She should have bought one, but she didn't know how to handle money. And that was something that I try to teach her. And I don't think any of them really knew how to handle money. Well, that all went down the tubes with me. But what happened was I ate all the hors d'oeuvres. And Diane said to me, she says, Clapp, you fucking pig. You ate all my hors d'oeuvres. He says, I have my family coming over from Saugus. They're the normal side of the family. What am I going to do? You ate them all. You ate everything, she said. So, okay, she made more. I apologize. Now we're sitting at the dinner table. We got our ex-husband. Okay, he's an ex-con. That's fine. I mean, this was something out of the movies. We had full dinner table of people, and there would be every part of the family. We had Uncle Murray. God bless him if he's not with us anymore. He was just a great guy, very comical. Then we had, I'll get into him later, Cousin Leo. We used to nickname him Cousin Ed. But we had a table full of people. And Diane said, listen, I just want to tell everybody that the way Clapp is going to end up dead, she said, is he's going to blow body parts all over a house someday. And it could be today in this dining room. I mean, she had a great sense of humor.
Oh,
she was
that's
a great
good.
person. And for whatever, she was my friend. We had a love-hate relationship. Yeah, we had a bang out, duke outs. But through it all, when we used to go up to Maine, or we took our little road trips, he'd light up a cigarette, and I'd say, I would like a cigarette, Diane. Well, you don't smoke. I said, but you make me nervous, so I want to smoke. So she gave me a cigarette. She gave me hers, and I threw it out the window. And I kept doing that till she didn't have any cigarettes left. And we're on the main turnpike, and she said to me, you son of a bitch. She said, I have no cigarettes. Well, she suffered from COPD, chronic obstructed pulmonary disease. She don't need to smoke. She rents apartments that are on the 3rd floor with no elevator. I mean, crazy stuff. So I said to her, when we were up in Maine once, and she found a hotel that she wanted to rent for John and his wife and the kids and for Nicole and her boyfriend. And she was just so happy to be with me. And I asked her once, I said, why are you happy to be with me? You've been with other men. And she said, because my kids hate Brian. He was, he was somebody that was not a nice person.
It wasn't Brian Albert, was it?
No.
Okay, just checking.
They nicknamed
just
him
checking.
They nicknamed him the captain because he was a bond captain, and I kind of took his position in the union as a bond captain. But he was a piece of shit in plain English, and I think John might be, if he's
Fits the
listening
bill.
tonight, he's going to say, you know what, Clapp, I'd like to kill you right now, but I got to agree with that one. And I don't sit here and I say, how could something beautiful turn so ugly? And what happened is when we were up in Maine, she was never cheap with her money. She never wanted me to pay for anything. And, she knew I worked 3 jobs, and she, once I was coming down the driveway with her, she says, what is that, a godly noise? I says, I need a brake job. It's metal on metal. She says, get it done. I'll pay for it. And she did. She had a heart of gold. And her kids, I really believed at one time, loved me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they knew the mother was safe with me.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've all had a mother. So she went out with some men that didn't treat her that well. And I told her that. And the way she enjoyed and loved being with me, because she felt safe with me. And I'm going to tell you from my heart, John and his sister were glad when I went out with the mother. They didn't have to call her. They didn't have to visit her a house or apartment, because they knew that that woman was safe with me. I didn't do illegal drugs. I didn't do drinking. Once, there was a funny thing once. She did drink, but by accident.
Hold on one second there, Kevin. Kevin, hold on one second. We're going to come back to that just in one second, because I just want to keep the years together here. So you said that you bought John his first Camaro, right?
I surprised him. He was a senior in high school. I told him if he does good, I'm going to have a surprise. I'm going to buy him his first car. And I did. Back then, Camaros weren't as expensive as they were. I mean, it wasn't something that you could put through the auction and get a lot of money for, but certainly wasn't a bad one. And
no, that's good. So when he graduated, John attempted to go and meet with a recruiter and try to go into the military, right?
Right. But when John graduated, he said something to me. When he came out, his face was like a little child at Christmas time. He just couldn't believe the car. And I told him I got him this out of love, that he will be careful with it. And, I don't know if I helped him put it on the road with the insurance. I can't remember. But, I think that's important, because there's not a pattern of hate here. There's a pattern of love, divine love. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, that's why the history of your guys' relationships and how your family's all connected and how you even know them. That's why it's important. That's why I wanted to start from the beginning. And then, so he comes to the point where when he graduates, he wants to go into the military.
I told him that if he wants to be anything, you got to be a veteran. You really need to be a veteran. And, he said to me, well, I want to go in the Marine Corps. And I said, okay. Then once I was working next to his mother, she used to work the midnight shift a lot as it's called revenue coordinator, fancy word. It's like a dispatcher all night dealing with people. And I happened to work with her. I was downstairs and we were talking. She says, oh, I didn't know he was going to go into the military. She says, oh, my son's going to be out of my ears finally. He wants to go into the military. I says, geez, he didn't tell me that. So I asked him. And
well, did John let me ask you a question. When John was growing up, did he get into any trouble? Was he ever in trouble with drugs or fighting?
No, you know what? I'd if I ever said that, I'd have a Pinocchio nose. I couldn't make it out of this building.
Yeah, so he was a good kid.
No, he was a clean cut, nice looking kid. growing up. He never touched drugs. He hated them. That's why he loved me, because he knew. He just knew.
Because his mom and dad, that was their vice.
Right, exactly. He grew up in a tough family, and he had a tough road. And I didn't have that. I was so grateful to the parents I had. I got a sister and brother that aren't so nice, and I got one brother that I'm very close with. And John knew that. John knew that, and he saw that, and he always said, "My family will be your family." And I thought that was a beautiful thing. And it was.
He said that to you, right? He said, "My family's."
I have a card from him after his father died. I paid to bring his body back from Florida.
We're gonna get wait, hold on. We're gonna get into that part because that's really, really important because I think that's a trigger for him. But I just want everybody to know that. So you got him his first car. I want to say car so bad because like I love how you guys
that
from
Ohio accent.
Yeah, there you go. So you got him his first car. Then he wants to go into the military and he fails his first piss test, right?
Well, yeah, we could call it piss test, urine test. But
what do you call it?
Well, let's be fair to him. Okay. I believe in being fair to people. He failed it because of a high protein. Okay.
Was he taking supplements or something?
I have no idea. The kid ran a high protein. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but for whatever reason, his protein was high and they wouldn't let him in the military. He was disappointed. And I had my first house then, and he came over with his girlfriend, Jenna. I still remember her name, Jenna. And she says to me, he's not going to go in. She said, he's very upset. He's very heartbroken. I says, no, he's going in. She says, well, he can't. He got turned down because of I says, well, no, I went out and I researched it and I bought some stuff for him to take, pills and drink. And if I have to pour it down his mouth in a funnel, I shall do that because he's going to lower his protein. He's going to go back to the recruiter, piss in a cup, and find out that he's going to be on a bus at 0400 in the morning on the way to Camp Lejeune in Paris Island. And that's exactly what I did. He pissed in a cup in my bathroom. I would dipstick it. I said, congratulations, you're going to the Marines. And I got his protein down, and in the Marines he went with his friends, of course. And one of the friends.
How long did he last in the Marines?
He excelled in the Marines.
How long was he there for? Like, was it like a year?
4 years. He joined the Marine Reserves for 4 years. He excelled. He was a platoon leader in no time. In the Marine Corps, you have to do a crucible where you live so many days in the woods, and it's this bizarre thing. A lot of people don't make through the Marines. Okay, John wrote me a letter a couple of times, and from there, they have very little time, these kids, to write letters. He phoned me a couple of times, and I was very proud of him. So he asked me, he says, Kevin, I want you to come to my academy graduation. They're driving down. My mother, she's renting a van. They're all going to drive down. I want you there. You're part of the reason that I'm graduating. I says, I just had massive back operation. I had a herniated disc, L5S1, and there's no way that I could sit in a van with the pain that I had to get down. I mean, I just couldn't do it. And I told him, and he understood. But backing up, because I think this is an important point, is this kid was never into drugs. He was a drinker. There's no question about it. Most kids do drink. Yeah, he could drink. He could put them down. But I never saw him with a cigarette in his mouth, and I never saw him with any drugs or any of his friends.
So his vice is drinking. Like he likes to toss him back.
Yeah, but who don't? I mean, if that's the worst thing.
Well, does it change him? Does it change him? Like, I'm all for it. Hey, cheers.
No, he knew. There was a funny thing. The mother. I can't let it go.
Like, we're talking high school, like, so.
Right. This happened.
Kids, we're gonna drink.
This was John once told me the best memories of his life.
I should actually say, like, this is actually like, what is it? Not high school, but like early 20s, right?
Right. Well, Yeah, and he told me the very early 20s. He told me that the best years of his life, the best memories were at that house in Stoughton. Now, he used to have a man cave before they called them man caves. He made his own man cave down in the basement. That's where he lived. And, so Diane used to say to me, her bedroom, the big bedroom, was upstairs. So he used to say to me, Diane said to me once, I want you to get downstairs. You're a man. You get downstairs and see what's going on down there. He says, I want to make sure that there's not beer cans and everything. And I'll never forget, I went down there and there was three girls down there. I'll just leave it at that. And beer cans everywhere. And I played custodian. I cleaned them all up. Listen, they were good kids. His friends were good kids. I didn't want to see them get in trouble. I cleaned up all the beer and everything, and I shouldn't have lied to Diane. I slipped back in bed with her, and she says, honey, she says, I do love you. She says, you're the only one proud enough to go down and discipline my son. I said, I didn't have to discipline him, Diane. There's no beer down there. I did lie for him. So during the night, her mattress was uncomfortable. This is a true story. So there was a bedroom downstairs in the back of the house, and it overlooked the backyard. And there was a bulkhead. Now, I never told her about the three girls in the basement. And so Diane was an early riser. I wasn't. And Diane got up about 4:30 in the morning, 4:45. She heard some noise. She come downstairs and she's shaking me and she wakes me up and she's looking out in the backyard. I says, what's the matter? She says, you son of a bitch, you lied to me. I said, what do you mean I lied to you?
Good woman. She's calling you out on your shit.
You lied to me. She says, my goddamn son, there's three little pigs that are coming out of, I'll never forget it. I mean, there's three little pigs coming out of my cellar. They just lifted up the bulkhead. I says, Diane, are you sure you didn't take any drugs? No, I know what I'm seeing. You get up and look. And I look, they're out there half dressed in their underwear, bare ass or whatever. And we just called them the three little pigs. Well, I knew they were down there. And, listen, boys are going to be boys. Let them have their fun. The three little pigs ran home about 4:45 in the morning. I don't know if they did oink oink all the way down School Street, but they left. That kind of tells you the relationship I had with this family. There was no animosity. There was no hatred. There was nothing but love and laughter. And I'd love to have it back.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into that now. So the 2000s kind of close, and then we get to 2005. And in 2005, you ask John, well, you got a house in Florida, right?
I had a house and a condo at the time in Florida.
Okay. I want to let everybody know that this next part is a trigger warning. I just want everybody to know that this is a trigger warning. This next part. So you had a house in Florida, and it was Port Charlotte, right?
Charlotte, yeah.
Okay. For those of you guys that don't know where Port Charlotte is,
right?
Yeah, it's like Fort Myers over there.
Yeah, it's on the West Coast. It's in between. It's not too far from Sarasota. We used to nickname it Port Toilet. Because it wasn't the best part of Florida. It wasn't the worst. And, when I bought my condo, John had helped me drive down there to put a lot of stuff, but I never lived there year round.
Yeah, like you just would go there during probably the winter time, like a snowbird.
Right.
Yeah. So there comes a point where you're going to go down there and you're going to go to Key West. And how does it come up that, hey, John's going to go with you and he wants to bring a friend named Robbie to go down to Key West in 2005?
Well, what had happened was, in 2005, I don't know what year, of course, he got appointed as a Stoughton police officer. And I think this is important in his, to bring out about John. You asked about his high school, and you asked about, I told you he chose me over his father to be at the graduation, and I couldn't be there with the Marines. He also chose me when he graduated from Stoughton High School. And I said, no, John, I'm not your real father. Maybe your real father should go. I feel bad. I don't want to step in his toes. And it's a very difficult thing for a man to I was in a very uncomfortable position because I felt that his real father should be there. And John said to me, I'd rather have you there. He says, and I did. I went. And he did the same thing when he graduated the Stoughton Police Academy. He said, I want you there. And I said, okay, but your father has to be there too. And he did. And his soon-to-be wife, I think, pinned the badge on him. And he was a Stoughton police officer where, again, he excelled. He taught classes there and courses and things.
So then you guys decide you're going to go to, he's going to come down. You guys are going to go to Key West, or you're going to go down to your house.
He's young, still wants to party. Who doesn't? I never had kids of my own. I'm like, well, we're only going to go through this life once. I might as well get back on the roller coaster. And, he said to me, where do you want to go in Florida? I says, well, I'd like you to see my house. And there's a place we can party. He says, but it only comes alive at night. And it's called Key West. He says, geez, Kev, I heard of that place. And I said, yeah, it's a real party place. He says, you've been there before? I says, yeah, I've been there quite a bit with different people. I says, but it's got a lot of different things. And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you'll see when you get there. But the people come alive at night, not during the day. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? They come alive? What does that mean? I said, well, you'll see when you get there. I said, there's a place you can drink. It's called Irish Kevin's. And there's another place, Uncle Tony's. I said, the people.
Captain Tony's.
Thank you very much.
I used to live there, so I got it.
Yeah, I'm having a senior moment. It's a great party place, and I got to say, I'd recommend.
I loved living there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So John said, "Well, I heard there's a lot of gay people down there," and I said, "Yeah." I says, "You're not homophobic," and I don't know if we even had that word out then. But I said to him, "Gay people, they don't bother you." He said, "Oh no, they don't bother me." He says, "But I heard like." There's this weird people out there. And he didn't really use the word transvestite, but he said, men dressing as women, women dressing as men. I think we were more into in this generation called drag queens as we knew them in my generation. Okay, you don't hear that too much now. So I said, John, they're called drag queens and you mind your business. You want to talk to them, you talk to them. You respect people, you're going to get respect back. So he said, okay. So, we went. I paid for it. He picked a friend to go, and it was a hell of a trip.
Who'd he go there? Who'd he go with?
His friend Robbie.
Okay. So it's you, Robbie, and John Fanning. And so you get down there. You guys go to like your place over there in.
No, not right away. They were too excited. They wanted to see this magical place called Key West that they didn't know what they were going to see. They had some vision. It was like Disney World. I said, oh no, guys, it's far from Disney World. This is very magical. But you're going to remember this trip, and they did. They really remembered it. And
so you guys get to Key West. Where is it that you stayed?
I stayed at the guest quarters. I always went first class. Guest quarters suite hotel.
Very nice place.
Yeah, I take it you've been there.
Yeah, I lived there, so yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. In 2005.
I didn't live there in 2005. I lived there in 2013.
Yeah,
no, 2013. Yeah,
there's really no
very expensive.
No good beaches there.
Yeah, Smathers is going to be your best option, but yeah, I mean you can still you have beach access and everything like that, but you're not like going to like. Yeah. Well, that's all. I just need a little bit of the beach. Like I can just lay out, get into the water, get on a boat. I love boats. That's why.
Well, we almost crashed in a plane, but I'll get to that. That was even better because we would have crashed into the water. So we almost had both. A plane crashed into the water on the way leaving Key West. It was a great. I mean, it was a trip.
So you guys get there and. I mean, Fanning really wants to talk about transvestites, doesn't he? He wants to he He starts partying. Like, how does
He's
it like?
interested. I don't know. Maybe he's
But
a
do you
late.
not think it's weird that he would be interested in that? Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe he's a late bloomer. I mean, I don't know. You know, some kids have pubic hairs. My cousin Chris had pubic hairs at 8 years old, and his father thought it was abnormal. You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, all I know is that we were going there to have a good time, and it didn't it was a good time, but it turned out ugly in the end.
let's kind of get into that. So, you guys are at this hotel, and all of a sudden, Fanning starts saying that he's buying you drinks, right?
Yeah, well, I used to, in my younger years, flip houses and I did nice work. So I was on the phone because I guess I was addicted to food and phones back then. And I'm up in my room that overlooks a tiki bar. I still remember this. And I'm on the phone with my friend Paul, asking him how the ceiling came out on a house that I used to own in Holbrook, Mass. So I'm talking to Paul. He says, "Where are you?" I says, "Oh, I'm with John and his friend there." So my phone beeps and I answer it, and John's under the weather. He says, "Kev, when are you coming out to the tiki bar?" He says, and I could tell he was feeling good. He was feeling real good. So he was probably drinking Long Island iced teas and margaritas, Sex on the Beach, you name it. So I said, "I will be out there in a few minutes." So I was out there. They were probably there an hour by themselves. He says, "Kev, sit down." He says, "I got to buy you drinks." So I started with he used to laugh. He said, "You want a Shirley Temple?" I says, "No, I'm going to go a little bit more than that." I says, "Give me He says, "I'm buying," he said. I says,
Yeah, that was it. He
"You
said,
always want," he says, "Kev, what I don't understand about you, you always want an orange and a cherry in it." I said, "I like my fruit." I said, "I like my fruit." So he says, "Okay." So it was a sea breeze. He says, "Kev, that's a woman's drink." I says, "I don't give a shit what it is. Just buy me one. You said you're buying." So he bought me one. He bought me two. He bought me three. Then I swapped to Pearl Harbors. I like Pearl Harbors.
Okay.
I got a woman here shaking her head. But anyways, okay, I like my Pearl Harbors. Now, I think he bought some other drinks. I started to get buzzed because I'm not a drinker. They were really, so he said, "Well,
it's a heavy handle there. I mean, they're gonna give you your
oh yeah, but we were there to party. I mean, we
yeah.
I
And you're
they
there.
said,
You're just like you're there to hang out. Just like
well, they wanted a trip to remember, so that's what I did, and boy, they remembered it. So what happens is I said to John, "Well, we're going to go out to eat at a nice restaurant." So he says, "Well, okay." I says, "I'm going to pay for that because you're paying for the drinks here." And he said, "Yeah, let me go pay for them now." So he goes and pays for them. I don't ask him how. I don't look at a receipt. And I'm talking a lot of drinks. They 7, 14, 20, it was probably 21 between the three of us. And back then, there were probably $8 a piece. I mean, there was a lot of drinks, a lot of alcohol. They jacked the prices up there. Okay, so we find our way off the tiki bar and this was really good. We rented motor scooters and I paid for that. Well, we were three drunks on motor scooters and, we'd take a left, I'd see John put his hand up, a right. And we're all over the road. The cars are beeping the horn. And I said to myself, something, if anything happens to these two, I got a lot of explaining to do. And his mother and father will kill me. I said, I got to we got to get off these mopeds. So I said to them, "Guys, let's return the mopeds because we're under the weather right now." And I said, "John, you're a Stoughton cop. You should know when people are impaired for driving." He says, "You know what, Kev, you're right. We are impaired." So we returned the mopeds and we took the guest quarters suite shuttle bus. Okay, we took it down to this beautiful restaurant and they give you these big menus like on a ship, but there's no prices. Well, John says, "How come there's no prices?" I says, "I don't know either." I says, "But I'm paying." "Oh, okay." So he orders, lobster tail with the steak or whatever. I mean, I didn't care, but it was when the bill comes, he takes the bill. So I thought he's going to pay it. And he says, "Wow, I don't know what it was. Let's say it was $120 back in those days. That was like $300 today." So he I pay the bill. Now we go out, sun sets, it's getting dark. This is the time that, this is the time that Key West opens up to what it really is. This is what Key West is all about. So we go around drinking, and from one bar hopping, if you may call it. And there's a guy telling jokes at Irish Kevin's. We went to many different places. We then went.
You guys get to a place where there's two women there.
He's running low. He met. I met them afterwards. Him and his friend met two women, and they were well, I thought women. So John come back. He said to me, he says, "I like those women." I says, "Oh, so I don't care what he does, right?" So he says, "But there's something, Kevin, I don't understand. They want me and Robbie to go to a drag queen show with them." I says, "Well, let me tell you something. They're not really women then." He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "Well, they're going through a change if they're going to a drag queen show." He said, "Well, how do you know that? Maybe they're not, and they just are into drag queens." I said, "Well, listen, you're over 18. You can do what you want." I says, "But I'm telling you that my best guess here is they're transvestites, and I would just stay away from them. I'm giving you my advice." And well, they're not going to listen. And so they followed them around. They had drinks with them. Okay. They didn't go to the transvestite show. I was very happy about that. Well, now it's 3:30, about 2 in the morning, 2:30. You've been at Key West. It's just starting to wind down. Nothing like this day. Just starting to wind down. They're tired. They want to go to bed. And we have a flight to catch the next morning on, I think it's Cape Airways, a little propeller plane. That was quite a ride. We went on a propeller plane. But before that, we go back to the hotel. When we're getting on the shuttle bus, down the back are these two women, the same women.
So the two women that were at
Correct.
they were drinking with you guys at the tiki bar.
No, they would never drink. Well, I don't know how much they were drinking.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of did my own.
But so like they come back into the picture and now they're on the shuttle bus, right?
Yeah.
And they're in the back, right?
Right.
Of the bus.
So they're in the back of the bus. Well, now John notices that. He says, "Oh my God." He says, they're in the same hotel we are. And I'm like, "Oh my God, why?" And so they went down and talked to them. And I said, "Look, you got to leave them alone." No, I got their room number. We're going to see them when we get back. I says, "Really?" I says, "It's like 3 in the morning, 3:30, whatever it was." I says, "This is, you shouldn't do this. I don't want you to do this. I'm asking you." No, we're big boys. We know what we're doing. Okay. Now, do you want me to back up and mention about the lap dancing before that?
Well, because you guys went to a strip club and he got before that
He
you guys
paid
went
for something. He paid for lap dances to include Kevin.
Okay.
And
but
she.
you heard him like a woman was like,
the
"What do
three
you?"
of us were in there, and I've been in lap dancing before. It's nothing exciting. Well, to me, I just we're all drunk, and this girl sat on my knee. One sat in Robbie's, one sat in John's. Robbie and John were together, and the girl says, "You can't touch my pussy, you can't touch my tits. Other than that, you can touch anything." And I'm like, "Geez, how much did John pay for this?" But I don't know. Then I heard
rules. Those are typical rules.
Well, I heard her yelling.
They're typical. So then he went above and beyond.
Well, I heard her yelling from the girl that John had. I don't know what happened, but she just kind of left. So I don't think he obeyed her wishes. Okay. So
I would probably agree if she was yelling.
Well, she left. She didn't look too happy. Maybe he didn't tip her well. Listen, I don't know. All I know
You better
is
pay.
that something didn't, something wasn't right there. Okay. He was a good looking kid, but he wasn't a Tom Brady or anything. And The thing is, we now put us back on the bus.
Put us back.
We go from the van. Okay, the happy bus, I call it, the short bus, whatever you want to call it. We go back to the hotel, and we get up to our room. We had slide cards. Beautiful hotel, 2 beds. He slept with Robbie. That's fine. No one sleeps with me. And his mother had called a few times, and I had called her. How are they enjoying themselves? Oh, good. Yeah, having a good time. Blah blah blah. Okay, so they said we're going to leave. I said, we got a flight to catch in about 3 hours to go back to Fort Myers Airport, Southwest Regional Airport, it's called. I said, that's where I have my car parked, because when we flew down, we flew from either Boston or Rhode Island, I forget, into Fort Myers, then took a cab to a hotel in Fort Myers, stayed overnight, and then took we took a boat over. That was it. We took a boat over to Key West, and we were going to take the plane back. Okay, so now fast forward, we're up in the hotel. These 2 go out, and they were going to visit the women who turned out to be transvestites. And I was like a father that couldn't sleep, because I just knew this was wrong. This was something. I was worried. I had a bad feeling. Intuition, it's called.
You were just like, what are you doing? Like, why do you even want to do this? Why? Like, what do you?
Well, I said that, but when you get 2 21-year-olds with you at 22 and they're drunk, there's no stopping them. Okay, it's like a football game. They're going to charge, and they went down there, and they were gone for a while, and then I heard a screaming. I'm laying in bed. I'm wide awake. I heard a screaming. Thank God I got the room with the balcony. I open the slider and I go out and by the tiki bar, and I think the pool was there. I'm not positive, because what I saw was enough. There was John in his boxing shorts, and there was a transvestite. I don't know. I think she had boxing shorts on too, because I didn't want to fall off the balcony, and I don't say that to be funny, but it wasn't really nice. And I heard John yell at her and say, "I've never been with a woman with a dick." Well, I guess he found out Kevin was right, but he didn't want to listen to me. So,
he's basically he was with her, and then he realized.
Well, I think he raped her, to be quite honest with you, because I got a phone call.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Here we go.
Yeah, well, rape is defined of many things. When you have a sexual pervert, anything can happen. And I think I saw a John Fanning that wasn't very nice that night. I think it kind of opened my eyes to who he really was, this one piece of shit. And, it was a big facade. It was a big window dressing. And I was fooled for many years. And he sucked my trough of money dry to use me, telling me how much he loved me and this and that. But shame on me, because I still hung in there, and he still sucked me dry to the point of losing my home. So as the story goes on, he comes up in the room, and he, they come in, they're still drunk. And, that's supposed to be their excuse. Well, we had a lot to drink. He says, "Kev, I'll tell you something. You were right. I didn't think there was ever women with a dick, but I found one." Okay. Now they drink every single nip in the refrigerator. Well, those nips are about $2-3 a piece. A lot of money. Well, when I the next morning, that night.
Well, didn't you get a phone call from like the front desk?
Yes, I did get a phone call. They said there's 3 of you in the room. I said yes. They said, well, there's a lot of screaming coming from outside, and we think one of them was associated with you. And I said, I'll take care of it. They wanted to call the Key West police. I just kind of, I really didn't know what was transpiring, but I knew something wasn't right. Okay, I didn't hear her say, rape, but he told me that it was a woman with a dick. Okay, so after that, they came back, they had their drinks. I went to check out. The next morning, I didn't sleep at all, needless to say. They snored like the Three Stooges, Two Stooges. I had to wake them up. I said, look, we got to be in a plane and we got to be out of here. Okay, this is it. So, okay, I figured all I needed was to run into them on the guest quarters suite. So the guy says, where you going? I said, we're going to the Key West airport. Okay. So the guy at the desk says, hey, wait a minute. You've got we put this on your credit card. We want to give you the receipt. Well, my God, the receipt was so long. And I looked at it. The first thing I noticed was all those drinks that John said that he paid for at the Tiki Bar went on my room. And I said to him, how did you do that?
What?
You lied to me. He says, and he laughed. It was a joke. Yeah, he extorted me. And a piece of shit, whatever you want to call him. And so what he did is, this is the real life of John Fanning, who's, quote, the lieutenant at the Mass Super Troopers down there at the corrupt Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Okay, he should be in jail, period. Now I'm getting a little angry because I'm getting further into the story. And it bothers me because it included my mother's death. And he could care less because he's a sociopath. And if you study sociopaths, they have no feelings. They only care about themselves. They love power and they love to exceed, to climb the ranks. And if you listen to what I said, he never liked animals. And I found that that's a big sociopathic trait with kids under 15 over. And, I'll get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. Do you remember that person that he was asking about in Key West? So he was like, show me Tony with the pump.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, he goes from one to talk about.
I've been blessed with a lot of wonderful friends in my life. Most of them are dead. I think Tony's still alive. He'd be 84. Let me tell you, your ratings will go up like better than Trump's if I ever brought Tony down here and he dropped his shots. But my friends loved Tony because they couldn't remember his name, but they used to say, Kev, can we go visit the guy that lives with Donna, the guy with the pump up dick? Because they couldn't remember his name. And it was my friend Tony. And in 1990, a friend of mine that's a lawyer whose son is a state trooper, but doesn't talk to me anymore because of the case. Okay, God forbid. But I still talk to the father. The father told Tony, your penis was injured. You got to go to the hospital and have a pump up dick put in. So he had it put in. So we stopped by Donna and Tony's house. Now, they split up since then. Donna is still a friend of mine, and Tony is too. Tony lives in Massachusetts. Donna lives in Florida. And I haven't seen her in many years, but we talk. And she was involved in this killing of my mother because, and we'll get into it later, but her rent was increased by a super trooper that owns a lot of property because she told him that what happened and she was on my side. So, all hands on deck. They had a bolo alert out for me and all these troopers had to attack me. And that's what they did. But back to John, we got on the plane. We flew through an awful storm. It almost crashed. It was bad. And the guy in front of me, I tapped him on the shoulder.
That was 2005, right? That incident with
Yeah. So okay. Yeah, John got up, him and his friend, and it didn't help, but I don't know if it was comical. He went like this, him and his friend. He says, United States Marines, when we crash, go like this, feet first, into the water. Well, the people are screaming. This is like a 12-seater plane. I'm up the front because of according to weight. Okay.
Wait, he told you to do this?
Listen, there's no question, by God, as much as the plane was crashing. I flew Cessna
after planes. What he did.
I flew Cessna planes in Sanford, Maine. I know instruments on these planes. I couldn't land, but I could take off. So they never gave me my license. But I said to the pilot, are you okay? You could see the sweat pouring down. He says, no, we're going to crash. And this plane, I looked at the altitude meter. I mean, it was like this. Okay. There was no question. So I called John up. I says, John, he says, Kevin, when we crash, you better hope something. You better hope you die too, because my mother's going to kill you if you're the only one that's alive. And I mean, it was funny, but hysterical. So I tapped the guy in front of me, who I thought was the co-pilot, and his head went like this. And I said, "Sir, aren't you the co-pilot?" No, he was the woman's husband, and he was drunk, and he just passed out. I'm thinking it's the co-pilot who passed out, and we got a drunk co-pilot. And this airlines is based out of Hyannis, Mass. I mean, they do puddle jumpers all the time, but they're not, they're not safe. What is? We got Boeing with doors flying off and people getting sucked out, as you see on TV. So what is safe? But anyways, to finish up on that, we all we could see is the clouds and the rain, and the turbulence was unbelievable. It was 45 minutes of hell. And so we finally landed, and I was holding the woman's hand next to me. She said, "You must be a psychologist." I says, "No, I do see one, but I'm not one." And she says, "Well, please pray with me. We're going to die." And I did pray with her. And Robbie took a lot of pictures of the whole crew, the flight, the guy that was flying the plane.
He was taking pictures while you guys were going down?
No, after we landed.
Okay.
After we landed. I'm a good swimmer, but not right
You're
now.
sick fuck.
Well, yeah.
Do you think that Robbie
We
hook up
landed at
with?
Southwest Regional Airport. They dropped the steps, the short steps, as they call them, the baby steps. We come down the steps, and Robbie had a camera, and he said, "Look, we almost got killed. Let's all remember each other for this." So, we put our arms all around each other, and Robbie took a bunch of pictures, but Robbie, he lost them. I never saw them. They were the greatest pictures we could have ever seen, and they would have been in frames, but they weren't.
We were gonna frame this shit, man.
Well,
You're cracking me up.
so anyways, they slept over my house. Okay, a couple of nights. They thought the house was beautiful. They saw an alligator in my backyard and a big black snake. John don't like snakes and was very afraid of them. Because when he was in the Marine Corps and he wrote to me, he got sent over to, that's how he became a veteran. Sadly, we have a problem with this government. If you go in to fight and you don't get sent to another country, foreign soil it's called, you're not considered a veteran. A lot of people don't know that. Very, very sad government. Hopefully the next president will change that. It's very unfair. So John went over. We had a big going away party. Him and his friends went overseas. We didn't know where they were going to go. Well, John ended up in the Philippines. And I remember he called me once from there. And, he was talking about it. And he wrote me a letter. And I sent him probably 7 care packages, beautiful packages, food, cans of Coke. It costs, I didn't care about the money. Okay. So I sent him all these packages. He called me up. He says, "Kevin, this is unbelievable. Halfway across the world, and only one thing broke, one Coke can." She said, that's great, John. I said, "What are you doing over there?" He says, "I pass out candy to kids." I said, "You fucking what?" He said,
What?
Yeah, he passes out candy to kids, and he's very afraid of snakes. He has a phobia of snakes. And if he sees a snake, he'll shit or piss his pants. Yes. So you don't want to bring a snake near John. So his sister was so excited when I was packing those boxes. And the mother had a little jealousy that night over her house. And she says, "What are you kissing my son's ass?" And I said to her, "Diane, you can help me too." I says, "Your daughter is young. She loves her brother. And she's helping me with these 7 care packages." So, okay, we got the care packages done. And he comes back and he's considered.
Wait, hold on a second. Like, his job was to pass out candy?
Well, that wasn't his job. That's what he did. He took care of the little kids with passing out candy. But here's the problem I got with that. I have a friend that's never been the same. And John knows who it is. His name is Mark. He's about 53 or 54. He fought over in Afghanistan at 39 years old. He went back in the service, left his wife and 4 great kids. John's been over his house. He knows who he is because this guy did work in John's house and never got paid for it. Never got paid. John stuck him for $600 plus putting in new stairs, my friend Mark. My friend Mark went in the service again the second time so he could have medical insurance and his wife and kids. And that was a wonderful thing to do. No, he didn't have no going away party. I just hugged him and wished him well. He called me several times from Afghanistan and Iraq. He says, Kev, it's real bad out here. Don't tell my wife, but I don't think I'm coming back. I cried. Okay. Now he's in his 40s at this point. When my mother died, I gave a eulogy when Mark's father died. And of course, Mark put his head down because at the cemetery, he never knew what was going to come out of my mouth. But me and his father were great friends. Mark's a great person, and he's like the little brother I never had. But I didn't like what John did to him. Now, to me, Mark is a real veteran. He fought for this country. He's got so many issues and problems. And really, one of the problems, I don't even think I told you this before, but he's afraid of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Here he is.
We're gonna get into that. Hold on one second. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna come back to Mark just in 1 second here. So when in 2005 wraps up, I want to keep us on track with these years. So then life goes on, but John starts dating somebody seriously where he buys her a dog named Daisy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know he did that. He tells me, he says, I bought Jane.
Did he beat the shit out of the dog?
Yeah, well, I've got to tell it in how it really happened. He buys I'm an avid animal lover. And I've always told people, don't ever call people, if you hate them, an animal. Call them a cannibal, because animals, listen, I've been near alligators, snakes, Florida. I've been all over. My mother had a deer come in her backyard because she fed it, and then she had it come in the house, and she asked me what the horns were, and it fed out of our hands. We raised raccoons. We had skunks descented. Nobody's more of an animal lover than my family. So we don't like people that abuse animals. I told John, why did you get a little black, beautiful Cocker Spaniel? He said, well, I got it for Jane. I said, but they're not a toy, and you got to take care of them. Well, Daisy, poor Daisy, she had some issues with peanut butter. She had some issues with different types of food that she couldn't eat. She had allergies. Well, once I was over his house, and you could see the rage in him now. Now he's changing, and he's now in the Mass State Police at this point. I don't know what year he got on. I cannot to remember. He should have never been put on. I told him not to leave the Stoughton Police where he was. I said, I think you have a better opportunity here. He says, why? I says, because you're a good line of bullshit. I says, and by the time you're 40, you'll be the police chief. And then if he had stayed there, I think he would have had a much better career, and all this publicity, a truth of what he really is.
So basically he switches over from being with the Stoughton Police Department.
He takes the police exam, and he first got called for the MBTA police where I worked. Okay, he didn't want any part of that. Then he worked for the MBTA. His mother got him a job on the trains, and he didn't like it. And there's some controversy in that because was he fired? Did he resign? And, hold that thought, because during the court discovery process, when I was suing him, the state police was so protective of their troopers. It's called IA, that's Internal Affairs. Okay. Internal Affairs is very dirty. It's a joke. They protect their own. Those that work together, lie together. That's the motto with these super troopers, I call them. I have no respect for them.
Super troopers. I love it. Well,
that's what they are, because they have no.
So wait a minute. When did John switch from being Stoughton Police to being in the super trooper group?
Well, he became, in my era in Massachusetts, we used to have the Capitol Police, which I was called for and I didn't take. Then they had the Registry Police that I was appointed, but I didn't take. I had two friends that took it. And then we had the MDC police. And what this crazy governor did years ago is they merged them to be, and John thought it was funny when I told him the story because he wasn't old enough to remember. So they merged them with the state police. And there's an old saying, when you went to court, everybody knew the Capitol Police. They had a big stomach like me, and they weren't that, gun ho person like that you would see that would fit that profile. So John said to me, "Well, I heard they made fun of them." I said, "Yes, they used to. There was RTs and PTs. RTs were real troopers. PTs were the pretend troopers, and this is true. And what they did is they went out and bought. If people remember, Chrysler made a PT Cruiser. So what these mean state police troopers did, as sick as they are, they would buy PT Cruisers and drive them up and say, here, you used to work for the Capitol Police. Now you're a trooper because you merged. You're a PT. And even in court, I used to see it in court because I worked as a private investigator for two different lawyers, and I saw it in court. I'd see a real trooper say, are you a PT or an RT? And that meant pretend trooper or real trooper. And somewhere, John asked me a million times, and I couldn't find it, but I know it's been somewhere unless somebody stole it. I actually had a picture of a PT Cruiser with the Mass State Police emblem on it. And that was before his time but if you think psychologically about this, they're sick because no one can fill the slot of a super trooper unless you go to their quote academy. Well, that's where the problem starts. That's where it first starts, the police academy. And we all know the show, Police Academy 1, 2, 3. Well, let me tell you how they treat these kids in that police academy is barbaric. It's flushing their head down the toilet, unflushed toilets, drinking your own urine, pissing in a bottle, drinking it, and anyone that's been in the Marine Corps, anybody, and I know many, and then you go to the state police and you ask them. I got a friend now that's doing work for me, and he said my two nephews dropped out. They were both in the Marines. I said, "Geez, Gary, what happened?" He said, the academy, they tell me that the academy is far worse for the state police than it is for the Marines at the Paris Island, Camp Lejeune. And that's true. Now, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing to these kids? Well, they're turning them into something that you don't want to put out in the street. And this is where it all starts. And years ago, there was a big controversy in Massachusetts. We have to stop this police academy. They fired people or this or that. Listen, it's all bullshit. They flushed the toilet a couple of times, got rid of some people. It still runs the same because I know people that are going through the academy that dropped out. They're going to go to the next academy, and they're all Marines. And they told me the same story. You still get your head flushed down the toilet. Now think about this. If you got a son or a daughter, well, there's another thing. The state police hate women, and they hate people of color. That's why it's less than a full complement of troopers is 2,200. They're never at 2,200. But they don't like people of color, and they hate women. And I asked a trooper once, his name is John, not the same John Fanning, another John. How do you deal with blacks and women if you hate them? He says, well, we just have to grin and bear it. Some remark like that. It's a sexist organization. They're in love with each other, and I truly mean that. And I just finished a 12-step group on rape.
Wait, when you said they were in love with each other,
yeah, the highest homosexual rate is the Mass State Police. Okay, and
they are like that.
Well, let me tell you, and this is a true story. I found two of them 69 and in the back seat of their Ford Explorer. I had a job. I lost many jobs during my case being charged with false felonies, with this Mr. Fanning, okay. And, what happened was I had a job as a courier, and I had to use my own car. And I was stopped in one night, and this is no lie, 17 times. Because what the local cops do, this is in Westford, Mass, oh, rich little towns. And I was an all-night courier making minimum wage because I'm out there trying to save my house after I was found not guilty by two different juries. I'm trying to fight to save my house. My mother was murdered. There was no justice there. So here I am with a little pension from the T and my Social Security just in another job. Well, I get fired from that job. I get fired from another job. And the reason I got fired is what they do is, even if you're found not guilty, your life is ruined. It's ruined forever. And it's ruined because of I hate social media. Okay. I don't know how to turn a computer on. Someone has done this for me. Listen, here's my phone. I got a flip phone. Okay. That's all I want. I don't like social media. It's the devil. It's caused so much crime. It's caused a lot. But I will say that when I was coming home one night about 4:30 in the morning, I was in the western part of the state. And, you can't even help a trooper. A regular cop, you sometimes you can help them. Sometimes they get attitudes. This isn't about, there's a lot of good cops out there because I know a lot of them. And I talked to one of them for 2 hours today. He's a deputy police chief. He was police chief. They wouldn't give him a raise, so he went to a deputy police chief. And I asked him, I said, I'm going to call for the resignation of Michael Morrissey. They call him Meatball Morrissey now because he likes his meatball subs. He's a dirty, dirty person. He should be in jail. And me and him have went toe-to-toe many times. And I told him, Mr. Morrissey, the only place I want to walk you into is a jail cell. I said, a federal one for a long time. You're so dirty. Your office is dirty. You killed my mother. You hid it under the rug. You ruined my family. You took my home. Listen, I could leave here tonight. The super troopers might be out there in the highways and byways I call Massachusetts Stressachusetts. And I really mean it. It is Stressachusetts. If you could live in this state, I could live in Iraq. You can live anywhere. I have seen more lives ruined by the corrupt legal system, weaponized. And, I am very unhappy that this happened to President Trump. But the difference, what happened to President Trump happened to me, happened to Karen Reed, happened to a lot of people. The only difference is Karen Reed and me are nobodies, and President Trump was a somebody. Okay. And I tell people, well, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. I said, well, I like him. I hope he gets in. I got a Mother Teresa thing I'm going to bring him. I met him. I like the guy. I like him. He's got
hold on. We want to come back to this part. Hold on really quick. Here we go.
And President Trump don't like dirty cops. He told me that. So we'll get that straight.
Yeah, we will definitely get that straight. Okay, so we're going to get into here. There comes a point in time when John Fanning's dad ODs in Florida. Yeah, right. in Florida at his girlfriend's house and dies, right?
In Diane's friend's house, Cheryl Hines, who was a piece of shit. And John didn't like Cheryl, and he knew that she was a bad person. And that's where his father died of a drug overdose at Cheryl's house in Port Charlotte.
I just want to say, in 2011, just want to keep it moving. So we talked about we started.
I don't remember when his dad died.
I went and looked it up. I went in 2011.
Well, all right.
I got you covered. So 2011, his dad ODs. Now you went and flew back his body, paid for his.
Well, yes, Diane called me up and she stayed close with her ex-husband. They were best of friends. And one thing before I forget it, me and Diane are laying in bed once and she says, sometimes I wonder about my son. This is before her husband passed away. She says, he was with his father on a jewelry. This is funny though. I mean, it's comical when you think about that. This kid is in a police uniform as a lieutenant with gold, with a gun and a badge, and a cruiser, and a homicide unit. He should be in a jail cell. But this is funny, okay? It's comical. I'm laying in bed with Diane, and she used to love to smoke, okay? And I couldn't take it. Smoke, Jane Smoker. So finally I said, "Will you put the goddamn thing out?" She said, "Okay." So she puts it out, and she says to me, one of the funniest things with my son is when my husband pulled a jewelry heist. I says, "Really?" She says, "Yeah, he took little Johnny with him. He was probably 4 years old at the time." He says, "Johnny was on the jewelry heist. And Johnny come home and he brought all these diamonds into me and these necklaces and everything." He says, "Mommy, jewels, mommy."
Okay, hold on one second. I want to keep us on track of something. Did you pay for John Fanning's
Yes. What
body to
happened?
come back?
Diane called me up. I was surprised.
Just so yes, you did, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you paid for him to come, his body to come back. What part of the
Yes.
funeral did you paid for?
I don't know. I paid $3,600. He picked me up.
Did John Fanning pay for anything to do with his dad's funeral?
Yes.
John Fanning did. What did he pay for his dad?
I don't know anything over $3,600. I didn't look at the bill. I gave
you
a
paid-
check for $3,600.
Okay.
He was buried. It was a lot more than $3,600 in
Yeah.
fairness.
So what did he get upset about? He wanted to start a GoFundMe though, but because you paid for stuff?
It kind of came out in court when he took the stand. He lashed out at me, and the jury saw that. The jury didn't like him.
So you didn't get that until the trial though. So you don't. So we're gonna get to that then. So
Right.
You just do the right thing.
Came out at the trial.
Yeah, you get his body back here. You want to help. Give him a proper burial, right?
And I was also a pallbearer.
Yes, you are a pallbearer at his dad's funeral. Now, 2000 and we're gonna jump here to 2000. And the next year that would come up that's significant here is 2012. I'm sorry, 2013. In August. What happens in 2013 in August? That when your mom was beaten at the home?
No, I have the police report and I found it. And
what's the date on that?
I'd like to read it because it's bizarre.
Yeah. Please read the police report.
Oh yeah, this is about as corrupt as you can get. My mother was beaten savagely on August 24th. Actually, it was August 23rd because the police came August 24th, and I
of 2013, right?
Right. Yeah, so it was it's Saturday. Yeah, it would have been Friday night, August 23rd, 2013.
Okay, go ahead. Do you want to read that report?
Yeah. It's
go ahead, read it.
But I think the viewers will get a good understanding what corrupt cops are all about. This is the town of Westwood, Massachusetts, which interestingly borders Canton, which is another corrupt town. I've had issues there too. This report, it's got an incident, a call number. The status of it is, and the viewers have to understand, as bizarre as this is, the status, no crime involved. Now, I want your viewers to keep that in mind when I read this. The reporting officer who showed up.
I'm going to help you out here. Can you, Heather, can you take a picture of that, please?
Yep.
Well, every page.
Yeah, if she could just take a quick picture of them, and then that I can help show it so that people can follow along if they choose to.
Well,
but you can just keep reading after she gets the first 2 pages, and you can just hand it back to him, and that way he can start.
Ready? This is going to nail them.
Again, thank you guys for being here. Kevin is walking us through everything because you guys, it matters the relationships. It matters on who these people truly were to each other, and then how did this all go way south. And we're going to get to something that's really, really. I mean, we've already heard something that I think is beyond horrible. What happened in Key West. And Kevin, you have their names too. That you.
Yeah, Brianna Bell was who I believe to have been raped and sodomized by John Fanning, being a transvestite. The sad thing on that, she comes from money, and her father owns Clearwater Airlines, and I've talked to her several times, and she was willing to go to federal court on the civil lawsuit that I lost because of a corrupt, rigged system. The judge was no good. The jury was no good. And I wasn't too happy with my 3 lawyers. I started that case myself, and I did it for 4 years. And then I gave it to legal counsel. I should have tried the case myself because they made a lot of mistakes. Okay, you listen, you could call me an uneducated person or whatever, but I can articulate, especially when it's your mother. And nobody could tell that story like I did. But let me read this report because this is where it all starts. It's got my name where I lived. It's got my mother's name where she lived. My mother was 98 at the time. I was 54. And it's at the Clark House, Longwood Drive in Westwood. It's not a dumpy building, okay, but funeral homes are beautiful, but dead people are in them. So what does it make? Okay, it says victim connected to offense, narrative for police officer Catherine McCarran. Now, she's the only one that was called on the first case that I was charged with those awful felonies that John Fanning made up against me that, I was supposed to go to jail for 7 years to 9 years. She took the stand, this dirty cop. Doesn't matter whether she's a woman. A dirty cop comes and doesn't matter. There's no sex, there's no color. If you're dirty, you're dirty. Okay, let me read this. On Saturday, August 24th, 2013, at approximately 07:49 hours, that's 7:49 a.m., Brian Hurley, the executive director of the Clark House, called the police station requesting police assistance. He was not on scene, but he reported that he received a call from staff indicating that they were having a problem with a patient's relative. Now, notice they knew I was the son, but a patient's relative. Great police work, right? On the second floor of the Clark House. All right. Responded to the nursing home with OIC Foley. Well, that means officer in charge. He was so drunk from the midnight shift, he couldn't stand up. He reeked of booze. Okay, I'm just filling in the blanks here so the viewers can understand. Upon our arrival, we went to the second floor and met with the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. LPN Magdalena Durr. She was on the phone speaking with the on-call visiting relative of Phyllis Clapp. I guess that was me. Was being threatening towards staff. Okay, well, that's what else are they going to say? When you become the victim through a weaponized court system, you're always considered threatening. Okay, everything is threatening. So it was explained to Officer Foley and I that a visiting relative of Phyllis Clapp was being threatening towards staff, stating he was going to have the facility shut down. My God, that's my constitutional rights. That's not threatening, you idiots. And I took pictures of the staff beating my mother, the facility, and potentially other patients. No, I never took other patients. There was no other patients. My mother was in an end room. What I took pictures of was my poor mother and the people that were beating her, the person that was beating her, and the supervisor that should be hung that gave me a problem. Okay. It was explained to Officer Foley and I that a visiting relative of Phyllis Clapp was being threatened towards staff. Okay, I read that. Staff stating he was going to have the facility shut down, taking pictures of the staff, the facility, and potentially other patients. The relative's name was Kevin Clapp, and he was Mrs. Clapp's son and healthcare proxy. We were told that Mr. Clapp has been confrontational in the past at other facilities, and Clark House has copies of these reports in which Mr. Clapp has been a problem for staff. We were told that at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, a hospital police officer had to be assigned to stand outside the mother's room in order to address the issues they had there. Well, that's a lie, but I'll get to that. You know, those that work together lie together. Okay, Officer Foley ultimately spoke with Mrs. DiBattano or whatever on Mr. Clapp, removed from the facility. Then a letter of no trespass should be written and given to Mr. Clapp. Officer Foley said that a copy of the letter should also be provided to the police department. Mrs. DiBattano understood. Officer Foley and I were then asked to stand by while the night LPN, Magdalena Durr, spoke with Mr. Clapp about deleting the pictures. I love that. Deleting the pictures he took with his phone and visiting our rules. I get very upset just even reading this because it really opens up a lot of wounds. And
I hear you, Kevin.
You know,
yeah.
I listen, whether you love President Trump or not. He said something. I'm only going to tell the story once because it's very hard and it's very, I forget the word he used, hurting. This is very tough. Okay, but the truth has to be known, and if I can help one person with it, then it's worth it. So spoke with Mr. Clapp about deleting the pictures he took with his phone and visiting our rules. Well, just to interject, there is no visiting our rules when it's a family member, and that's under Code of Mass Regulations. It's not a state law, but CMRs are called Code of Mass Regulations. If you look it up, if a woman named Julie is in the hospital, is a friend, and I visit her, there's a law, and it's on the books. And Julie says, "I'm afraid of this hospital. I want you to stay." And the woman in the bed next to us says, no, I don't want him to stay. Well, the law says they have to move that woman they have to move that woman to another bed. And as long as I'm acting fine, I can stay. They don't have to give me a bed, but I can sleep on the floor for Julie. Now, we'll go one step further. This is my mother, and I'm the healthcare proxy. I'm the son of a 98-year-old woman who has been through a living hell. You think I'm going to leave there? No. That doesn't happen. Not in my life. So Officer Foley said that a copy of the letter should also be provided to the police department. Mrs. DiBattano understood. Officer Foley and I were then asked to stand by while the night LPN, Magdalena Durr, spoke with Mr. Clapp about deleting the pictures. You see, dirty cops. Instead of saying, "Good for you, Kevin, you took pictures of your mother being beaten up, slammed in a toilet. These are good. We're going to prosecute this son of a bitch. She's going to jail." No, what these dirty cops did, all white cops, mind you. This is not a black. This has nothing to do. I am not a racist person, but I've always said there's going to be a revolution in this country, and we have it because the white people just can't stick together. And that is a big problem. The black people stick together. White people can't stick together. And I've said this for many years. And until we stick together, these problems will never be solved. Okay, Mr. Clapp's, he spoke with Mr. Clapp about deleting the pictures. This is just nonsense. He took with his phone and visiting our rules. Well, that's my mother. Fuck you. There is no visiting our rules. Okay, nothing. Apparently, another issue was that Mr. Clapp spent the night in the room with his mother, sleeping in the adjoining bed. Well, geez, when Diane Fanning was in the hospital, I slept in the adjoining bed with her, and the nurse came in and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm planning on marrying that woman." And, "Well, you can't sleep in the bed." I says, "Why? You hospitals, I got Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'll give it to you. I'll pay for the bed. I want my breakfast." Yeah, I kidded with them. Okay, they didn't call the police. They didn't make a big thing out of it. I was tired. I didn't want to go home. Diane said, "Hey, there's a bed next to me. Sleep in the bed next to me." Okay, and I did. But this was an issue now because there was an assault and battery on an elderly person, which is a felony. But unfortunately, in Massachusetts, the elderly and veterans have no rights. And believe me, veterans are treated like shit too. And it's sad. Officer Foley and I were then asked to stand by while the night LPN, Mrs. Dewar, spoke with Mr. Clapp about deleting the pictures he took with his phone and visiting our rooms. Apparently, another issue was that Mr. Clapp spent the night in the room with his mother, sleeping in the adjoining bed. Mrs. Dewar expressed that she was nervous. She was nervous to speak with him alone. So Officer Foley and I went to the room when she addressed these issues. See, what they do in this weaponized legal system is they change everything. See, Kevin Clapp is now, he's a bad person. Yes, he's with his mother. He loves his mother. And there's an old saying, how do you tell a good man? By the way he treats his mother. And I'm a good son, and I'm protecting my mother. And you know, I read this, and I'm just in awe, even though it's been a decade, that something like this, I want this case reopened. And I want the resignation of Meatball Morrissey and Mr. Fanning. And, you know, I'm not going to stop. I got to tell you something, because I remember this, all these memories coming back to me. When there is a God, I'm religious. I wear a bracelet with Mother Mary. I have two Mother Marys. I pray every single night to my mother, and I pray every single night to God. And my mother was very religious. I don't care for Catholic priests. I've had uncomfortable experiences with them, but I do believe in God. I brought some pictures to the funeral home for my mother's wake, and this was well before visiting hours, and it was private. We wanted private. That's what my mother wanted. And so when I brought them, I saw the hearse in the garage, and Cartwright Funeral Home told me, put the pictures in the garage because the doors are locked, and we'll set it all up for you. Go home, take a shower, relax. I know it's going to be a tough night for you. We're going to have music and everything, and we're going to have a tribute for your mother. And it was tough because I couldn't leave after I brought those pictures in. And I saw the hearse, and I said, my mother didn't belong in the back of this. That's my mother. And the way she left this life, it was wrong. And I'm trying to make a wrong a right. And these bastards are out there with guns. I wish they'd put a gun to their head and blow their fucking heads off, every one of them. I can't stand them. I hate them. And I'm not afraid of them because my parents raised me not to know intimidation. They never intimidated me. They hated me with every not guilty that was given. The judges hated me. The district attorneys hated me. I'm glad they hated me because my mother was with me and she's with me tonight. And that's why all my friends have died before me except two. Because one friend that was dying of cancer told me, Kevin, you're going to be the last one to go. God, the Holy Spirit is telling me you're needed. You're needed to fight the fight that no one can fight, the people that are silenced, the people that don't know the laws, the people that have been rigged by the corrupt courts, the corrupt judges, the corrupt cops, the whole corruption of the system. You are going to be the last one to go because you will have a mission, one last mission. I believe this is my last mission.
I believe it too.
So what happened was they told me that door was locked. It's a big door where they take the bodies out of the hearses and bring them through. And we grew up in Braintree. I had no money. My mother was cremated. I still haven't buried her. I don't have the money to. I keep a rose by her. You know, very hard to let go of her, especially when someone's cremated. She was like my daughter to me. I didn't have kids. So the point being, I had to go over to that door. I couldn't leave. And the door was open. I said, my God, who left this open? The divine intervention? Was it my father, my mother? I said, I have to go in that funeral home. There was nobody there. I have to see my mother laying in a box before anybody. And I did it. And I ran up the stairs. I've been to that funeral home before. My poor aunt was laid out there. A lot of people I know. And I'll tell you, Scott Cartwright, God rest his soul, he died of pancreatic cancer at 66. He never took a penny from me. When I called him bawling my eyes out, that man did everything for nothing. And it took me 3 years to pay him, but I paid him. Now they're not so nice there because Scott died. Scott was an angel. And I told his wife at his wake, he was an angel. But what I did is I went upstairs and I pushed the door open and there was chairs behind it. I could see my mother. She wanted to be laid out in her peach dress, which I had cleaned. Oh, I opened the doors. I go down and it's just an awful thing. It would be okay to see my mother in a casket. Like my brother said, if she had died in her orange chair, she slept in bed and died in bed. If she had died at the kitchen table, that's what my whole family thought. It's okay that she died at her age, but not the way she left this earth. She got no justice. It's okay. She lived a good life, but not at the end. So I said to my mother, through tears, I said to her, Ma, I am going to get every fucking person, because my mother, she had a mouth. And I said to her, Ma, my promise to you is I'm going to get every fucking person that put you here through the legal system. And I haven't stopped yet. It's been almost 11 years, and I'll never stop until they put a bullet in my head. Now I'll finish this Mother Goose report. Okay, Mr. Clapp spent the night in the room with his mother. Oh, isn't that bad? Mrs. Durr expressed that she was nervous to speak with him alone. So Officer Foley and I went to the room while she addressed these issues. Upon entering the room, I observed Mrs. Clapp in bed A, which is located furthest away from the floor. Her son was in bed B, which is closest to the door as you step from the hallway. Mr. Clapp was laying in the bed and initially remained in this position while Mrs. Durr attempted to address the issues mentioned above. You know, they wanted the pictures deleted. Well, that wasn't happening. Mr. Clapp indicated that he would not delete the pictures because he was going to file a report against the Clark House of being understaffed. He planned on utilizing the pictures to prove his argument in getting the facility shut down, which I never did, because the woman that was going to do it was fired. She was a big shot in the state health and human services, so they got rid of her because she was on my side. That's what they do. Mr. Clapp also added something about previously being in the DEA. I don't know where that comes from, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and mentioned other law enforcement affiliations in his responses to Mrs. Durr. The law enforcement statements that were made seemed out of context for Mrs. Durr was attempting to address, until Mr. Clapp then stated he was glad that the police came because he wanted to file a report of assault and battery on behalf of his 98-year-old mother against the 3 to 11 p.m. CNA, Certified Nursing Assistants. Mrs. Durr was not finished with the request made of her by her supervisor. So we had her continue before addressing Mr. Clapp's issue. I mean, this is like a briefing at the White House. Okay, Mr. Clapp's issue with the CNA from the night before. Then he was spoken to about the visiting hours. He was not allowed to stay past 8 p.m. Okay. Mr. Clapp indicated that he wasn't going to be a problem anymore. He said that he was signing his mother out and they would be leaving. Clapp is a large man in stature. I love that. Well, blame God. That's the way God made me. I'm the fat man with a lot of love, just as big as my stomach. So people love to use that. What they do is they make fun of people's medical. Okay. It's so sick what people do. Yeah, I have a bottle.
They wrote that in the police report that you were a large man in statute?
Yes, they do it. Most cops do
just
that.
Like they did a Karen Reed about talking about her medical stuff. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I have
sorry.
Karen. I have diverticulitis. If I have any more cut or any more problems, I'm going to have a bag like my 104-year-old aunt that was murdered in Weymouth, Mass, and she died March 23rd, 2023. we didn't get to that. My beautiful aunt, 104, that was murdered. That's my mother's sister. Massachusetts is just great for killing the elderly and putting it under a rug. Wonderful state. Okay. So he's not allowed to stay past 8 o'clock. Okay. I said that wouldn't be a problem. I'm leaving. So I'm a large man in stature, and several times he spoke over Mrs. Durer. Oh my God, over Mrs. Durer, while attempting to advocate for his mother. Well, what son wouldn't, right? Once she finished, Mrs. Durer then left the room so Officer Foley and I could speak with him. When Officer Foley attempted to address, now he was the drunk, believe me. I've dealt with drunks all my life. He had slurred speech. He was unstable in his feet. He had glassy eyes. And if I was a cop, I would have arrested him right there. He's just coming off the 11 to 7 shift. He was definitely plastered. Okay, good old Officer Foley. He attempted to address Mr. Clapp with regards to not becoming disorderly. Mr. Clapp interrupted Officer Foley several times, stating that he wasn't disorderly and tried to speak over Officer Foley as well. Well, there's one for the road. Okay, Mrs. Clapp, this is good now. Mrs. Clapp was awake and appeared to be orientated. Very important word. She appears to be orientated and aware of what was taking place. She still had her driver's license. She still drove. She still cooked. She still cleaned her house in Braintree. Okay. So Officer Foley directed his attention to Mrs. Clapp because she was orientated and aware of what happened. He spoke with her briefly to try to gain a better understanding of what happened. At this point, Mr. Clapp began getting his mother ready to leave. After hearing what Mrs. Clapp had to say, it was determined that a report would be filed with regards to the allegations of an assault and battery. Now, let me stop there. These police have determined this woman is of sound mind. She told us she was beaten. This is an assault and battery on an elderly woman. We are going to pursue it. Well, hold tight to see what they do and what they say. This is bizarre. Okay. Officer Foley and I went to the nurse's station to speak with Mrs. Durer again, and she was able to provide 3 written statements that she took from the staff that were on the 3 to 11 shift on Friday, 8/23/13. Mrs. Durer said that the CNA in question, Jomice Silvest, was placed on suspension while an investigation was conducted regarding attachments to this report. Mrs. Durer was still in the process of completing her own write-up on the incident and said she would fax it to me later today for submission as well. After obtaining the statements, Officer Foley and I went back into Mrs. Clapp's room. She was now sitting up in bed, and her son was continuing to pack his mother's things up. I asked Mrs. Clapp to explain to me what happened the night before. She told me that she needed to use the bathroom before going to bed for the night. The CNA, Jomice Silvis, assisted her into the bathroom, but she became rough with her and slammed her, in parentheses, down on the toilet seat. Now, let me interject. The toilets in these places have bars. Slammed my mother down. She was all of 110 pounds, 5'1". They bent the bars from the toilet. The arms were crushed. They were bent. It looked like a gorilla sat in that toilet. Got a 98-year-old woman. That was physical abuse like I've never seen on an elderly person. Next, Mrs. Clapp said that she has a bed sore on her behind, and it was painful when the CNA did this. Next, when the CNA was assisting her back to bed, Mrs. Clapp wanted to sleep in bed B, but the CNA grabbed her by the shoulders. Now, this is my mother telling the story. She grabbed her by the shoulders, slammed her against the wall just outside the bathroom, and told her she had to go in bed A. It was about this time that Mr. Clapp had come to the facility to check on his mother. He stated that he had tried to call the room, but there was no answer. Certainly wasn't. They unplugged the phone and took it out. I found it at the nurse's station. That's not elderly abuse, and I don't know what is. Because
Wait,
they
wait,
didn't want,
she didn't have a phone?
no, they didn't. They were killing her. So they wanted to take the phone out because my mother was quick on a phone. So they took the phone out of her room. She was only there one day in night. And this happened the day she was admitted because they were told to kill her. And they were told to kill her because she was a problem patient and I was a problem son. It's a very weaponized system. I know it's very hard for people to comprehend this, but it's true. They took her phone out and they took it out at Brigham's Hospital too. They do this to a lot of patients, but see, because they're nurses, they're supposed to be loving people in care. Well, let me tell you, there's good and bad in every walk of life. Next time you see a nurse, the ones I've dealt with, not all of them, some of them were great. Some of them I got these bracelets for, and they had to take these bracelets off because when Nurse Ratchet, the supervisor, saw them, she told them, take them off because she knew they were a gift. So there is nice nurses. I gave gifts to them. Back to the report, he and his mother, Mr. Clapp said that his mother had just been admitted on Thursday from the Brigham and Women's Hospital. He called the nurse's station also, Mr. Clapp, and there was no answer there either. No, they had caller ID. They saw it was me calling. Why would they want to answer the phone? They were assured that his mother's room would be blocked off as a private room because my mother had the insurance for a private room. So there would be nobody in the other bed. The reason my mother wanted bed B and not bed A was the bed A had some sort of a mattress that, I don't know, it was like an air mattress and she didn't like it. It made noises or whatever. So she was afraid of it. Okay. So she wanted to be in the bed by the door. What's the big deal? It's a private room for her. That's why it was told it was a private room. Let's see. In reading the CNA statement, Mrs. Clapp said she didn't understand what the big deal was. She only wanted to be in a different bed. In reading the CNA statement, there does appear to be a communication issue regarding the bed choice because she checked with another staff member and the paperwork as Mrs. Clapp listed as being in bed A, resulting in the CNA placing her into bed A. Mr. Clapp felt he startled the CNA when he walked into his mother's room. He said she wasn't expecting him. No, nobody was expecting me. What I did, it was about 9 o'clock at night. I lived at the time at my home in Brockton. And I called my mother just to check on her. There's no answer. Now I call the nurse's station because I'm worried. There's no answer. Well, they have a code to get in the elevator so their patients don't escape, I guess, when they're beating them to death. That's what the code is. I call it the death code. And I think I still remember it, 4812.
So your mom was only there for one day and one night?
Well, she got admitted that morning and she just didn't like it because all these places are abusive to the elderly. And, I got very friendly with some very high people in the health and hospitals that were very nice to me. And they told me, they said, Kevin, you have our permission to investigate these places. You can go at 2, 3 in the morning, which I did. And I went to these nursing homes and my mother was only there to get better. She wasn't a patient there forever. I would never put my mother in a nursing home or a rehab center. I thought they were going to work on it to get her walking better. That's what she was in there for. So Mrs. Clapp listed as the bed. Okay, Mr. Clapp felt that he startled the CNA when he walked into his mother's room. He said she wasn't expecting him because I got in my car, raced down there, pressed the code, and I walked upstairs. And this is important. When I walked upstairs, the elevator door opens, and the first thing I can hear is my mother yelling, crying, yelling, Kevin, Kevin, Kevin. Now, let me tell you how this happens. If you bring a baby, and it's been explained to me, and this is true, if you have an abusive mother and she takes a lit cigarette and she burns the buttocks of a little baby, and you take that baby to a hospital and it's being treated, that little baby will cry out for his or her mother that just put those cigarette hole burns in, because the elderly revert back to like little children, and they cry out to the one that they're the closest to for help. So my mother had no idea that I was coming up there, but she cried out like that little child would do that was just burned. She cried out for her son, Kevin. And it was God or my grandmother. Somebody put me there. So I come off the elevator and I said to the white male nurse, "What's going on with my mother?" "Oh, nothing, but she is a pain." I said, "Where's her phone?" And the punk, the piece of shit, he picked up her phone. He says, "Oh, we took it out of the room." You know, I could have said to him, if I'm an abusive person, what I would have did is take the phone cord and wrapped it around his neck. When I look back, it shows how I controlled myself when other people
Yeah.
control themselves. Because there's nothing worse in life than seeing your
Kevin,
parent.
can I ask you a
beat up.
question really quick? Do you do you believe that when people found out possibly that you were taking your mom to this facility, that, hey, treat her like shit? Or was it more like after the fact of this happening and you making it known to people that they were like, no, we're going to get back at Kevin and we're just not going to like do anything?
I can answer that because my mother's doctor even verified it for me. And he'll probably come in this program for me. He's probably close to 80. Along this tragedy, with every tragedy, God gives you good people in your life. And I believe that. And I believe when something bad happens, God closes a door, he opens a window. And he's opened many windows for me because I shouldn't be here today. I shouldn't be telling this story. All my friends are dead, and every funeral wake I went to, I said, why is it them and not me? Why haven't I left this earth yet? But I think my friend Billie Jean said it the best, that God, she said that the Holy Spirit has told her. Now, that poor woman was dying of ovarian cancer. She would have chemo and come home and call me because she was worried about me, not herself dying. And my friend Geraldine, I was blessed with many, many friends that were rocks, solid rock friends. And they all said to me, you're doing the right thing. Keep on fighting. Fight, fight, fight. And I'll never stop till there's a bullet in my head that kills me, because I'm never going to stop. That was my mother. And for whatever reason, the good Lord has kept me here to fight this. I say to people that say, well, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. I got a cousin, Nurse Patty, I call her. And that'll come at another night, how she's abusive to the elderly. We call her Nurse Patty. She resigned as a nurse. But, for every tragedy, there's a reason. Sometimes we don't know what it is. And we seek answers for this in life. And there's one thing that I learned, if I learned anything about all the tragedies I've been through, in and out of jail, try to kill me at the Dedham House of Correction, the nurse, Maureen Fitzgerald, a real evil person, and the male nurse saved my life because I was going into seizures. Oh, I've been through a lot. Yes, but through it all, I'm still here to tell the story. And it's the divine intervention, because if it helps one person, then I've completed my mission. I pray to my mother, like I said, every night. I pray to God. But let me finish this. It's almost through.
And as you're saying that, because I want people to know that we're going to be doing episode 2 here of this on Monday evening, same time. But because we're going to get really into the meat and potatoes here, which is that you wanted charges pressed because this happens in August. Your mother passes in November of 2013.
November 21st,
and
bled to death by this injury. But they falsified her death certificate because everything is corrupt. The state medical examiner is very corrupt. When I called them up the day after my mother,
Kevin, I want to keep us on that right there. I want everybody to come back and to be able to hear that and not be rushed. So that's kind of where I want to leave off. So we're going to end off with starting with the end of the police report here and then moving into what happened once this happened in August. what happens in November of 2013, and then how it goes to the fact of that you have a unfortunate situation where after your mother dies, then John Fanning's mother passes literally within 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, a little less.
And yeah, so she passes
Well,
in January of
I
2014.
believe, well, he didn't legally kill her, but she was a beautiful woman. And I got to say this, she was on a respirator. I didn't go because I didn't want to see the piece of shit. Every one of his family members called me, every one of them. And they told me he is a sick sociopath motherfucker. He's going to sign to shut her off and kill her. His uncles, he don't know the people that called me, every one of them. And they said he used to always come in his Super Trooper detective outfit, and he'd always pull his suit back so he could show his gun and his badge. Well, hi-oh, Dario, okay? Even the Dodgers, and I was told by his cousins, by his uncle, everybody, that kid they should have injected him right then and there, because me and Diane, we had something going. And what it was the same thing that happened to my friend John, another friend of mine. He needed new lungs. Diane needed a lung transplant. My friend John needed a lung transplant. He went on the list, said, I'll go anywhere. During COVID, he got a phone call, New York, we found the lungs. They drove right down there. Same as Diane, COPD, very bad, was on a ventilator. They weaned him off, the same exact thing, same age, no cancer involved in either one of them. John today is off the oxygen, had a successful operation in New York of a double lung transplant, is off the during COVID, during the height of COVID, is driving a car, is off the oxygen. Now, you can call it a miracle. I wanted the same thing for Diane, but her son stepped in and stopped it because the sociopath needed, as sick as he is, to remove his mother from the picture. Okay, so I still remember the time she died. Leo, who turned out to be a nasty person, cousin Leo.
We're gonna get into all of that. So I want to keep us right here. Please join me and Kevin back here on Monday night, same time, 7 p.m. prime time, with episode 2. Kevin, first of all, I want to say thank you for being here on this show for episode 1.
Thank you.
And I know that everybody in the chat, we're going to be able to do a huge Q&A there on the last episode.
Thank you for taking the case, and thank you for having the courage to put it on.
Absolutely.
Thank God you live in the state of Ohio. That's all.
Yeah, I'll fuck with anybody, Kevin, that wants to bring the truth.
Well, I told them this was never going to go away, and so they better blow me away because it's never going away. We can talk about politics or anything, but listen, when it comes to your mother or your father, they were the best, and it's okay that she died, but it's not okay the way she died and what the weaponized court system and the state police did. And then to beat me up, they ambushed me in my driveway, dragged me down 35 feet, broke my elbow, displaced elbow fracture.
And we're going to get into that because Tully was involved with that. We're going to talk about all these bastards. Please join us this Monday when we start outing the fuck out of these pieces of shits. You ready, Kevin? Let's go.
Yeah, but I'd like to walk them all into a jail cell to spend the rest of their fucking life, and not in protective custody. I want them in general population where I used to work and where they put me. I had no problem because I'm a survivor. Okay,
let's go.
But they did almost kill me the second time. And then the bail, they got to hear about the bail. I was like a 69 Camaro. First it was 25,000. Then the special prosecutor wanted 50,000. And then I was going to go to the highest bidder. Then Judge Looney Tunes looks at it. She was a whack job. He looks at it and says, well,
we'll be back here next. He's got so much to say. We're going to be back here. He's got so much to say.
Welcome.
Join me on Monday.
Transparency. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Transparency. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Not sure if this is working, but
Today is not. With the arrest of Richard
thank you guys so much for being here on Truth and Transparency. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. Kevin will be back here on Monday night. Kevin has a lot to say. We're going to give him that platform. Again, thank you for all the moderators, the members, subscribers. We'll see you back here Monday night. Thank you, Mr. Clapp.